This buried delta can maintain a huge amount of fresh water within the saline marine waters without mixing completely with each other. Even if they mix, you will have a sheet of what we call brackish water, medium saline water. Yani not purely saline, but half saline water.
Yes.
Call it brackish water. Brackish water can again build another barrier to separate the purely fresh water from the purely saline water.
Yes.
And strangely enough, in every one of these environments, you see, the environment itself has got its own physical-chemical characteristics, its own temperature, its own degree of salinity, its own type of sediments, and its own life forms. And the life forms in every environment cannot migrate to the other environment, otherwise it will be killed. Except for a very few examples that can transgress this boundary, but the majority of forms of life, each is restricted to its own environment. Another reason for this separation is that the water molecule is a dipolar molecule. The two hydrogen atoms carry a positive charge, and the oxygen atom carries a negative charge. And once you get these polar molecules, or dipolar molecules, facing a similar charge in the saline water, particularly that the saline water carry many anions and many cations, you see, because of the salt that's in it. And you get this repulsion, this electric repulsion between similar charges that also can create a further barrier to keep that fresh water for as long distances as it can, without, they meet actually, without purely mixing one with the other.
Yes, but this would exist in a normal experiment, in a normal easy experiment, the same resistance?
Yes.
Or is it a combination of the resistance of the ionic resistance and also the pressure and the speed of water?
Yes, the pressure as well, the head that water is coming with.
Yes.
But the main thing is that Allah has created this characteristic in the water molecule, that it is a dipolar molecule. One pole is carrying a positive charge, and the other pole is carrying a negative charge. And of course, through the density of cations and anions in the saline water, it happens that similar charges can face each other and they repel against each other, so that an electric barrier would be formed around the fresh water or the brackish water or the saline water, and they will never mix. And I know that you lived in Bahrain for some times.
Yes, this is
and the name Bahrain comes from the fact that freshwater springs come from within the saline water, and they meet and they never mix. And divers used to go down to catch these springs and infill their bags, you see, or their pots, you see, with fresh water from within the sea.
From
within the
deep
sea. And hence the name came Al-Bahrain, the two seas. One fresh and one is saline.
This is very great. We will now move for a very short break and return back for more explanation and more questions regarding this beautiful topic.
مرج البحرين يلتقيان بينهما برزخ لا يبغيان.
He released the two seas meeting together. Between them is a barrier which they cannot cross.
Welcome to this new episode of Focus Point.
The new generation has the habit of reading more than before.
Jewish question was named basically the problem of Jews who lost their function in society.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back. You're watching Qur'an and Science, and we were just speaking about the barrier between the sweet and the salty waters, and now we'll open up for more questions from Abdul Halim regarding this topic.
I was wondering, we've seen in everyday life, if you can put two different waters of different density, the lighter will go on top, but it's like on top of each other. But in the sea, it's unique. that there is a barrier on the side as well. That
No,
we
there
don't
is
see.
also a barrier at the bottom.
I-
Because usually fresh water is less dense than the saline water. Saline water is heavier. And that's why the fresh water, as the river debouches in the sea, as the river throws its water in the sea, you will find that the fresh water will flow for several kilometers, you see, on top of the saline water without mixing. So the barriers are not only on the sides and at the front, but they are also at the base.
Okay. Abdurrahman?
I wonder why the proportion of fresh water is always less than the proportion of saline water on Earth. If we compare the amount of fresh water versus the amount of saline water, it's much less than it.
This is a miracle by itself, because once you get salt dissolved in water, this becomes a way of protecting this water from further rotting and going bad. So the more saline the water is, the better protected this water is from the decaying animals and decaying plants and the decaying other forms of life that would be in them.
So salt is a preservative for water.
They are better preserved. So the amount of fresh water is in exactly the same requirement that would maintain life on Earth. If we had more rain, more excessive rain can be destructive. If we had less rain, people will die out of thirst, you see. So there is a beautiful balance. And I try to give an example by this balance. I said, you get 60,000 kilometers of fresh water rising from land, you see, and 320,000 kilometers rising from the seas and oceans. But when the rain comes, you get 96,000 kilometers of fresh water coming on land. Isn't that a mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? We have 36,000 kilometers plus every year coming to us through rain. And then, so that it will not drown life on earth, after doing its role on the surface of our planet, it flows back to the sea.
But
So that the level of water in the sea will remain constant in every episode. And at the same time, we will use that water and it flows back to the sea.
I also wonder why God has called it two seas, despite the fact that in other verses the river was called the river. Why we call it here a sea?
Because the Arabs used to call both the river and the sea with the term al-Bahr. And al-Bahr is a term